it isn't often that you get to watch the emergence of a new kind of sport, especially a professionalized sport. When you look back at football, the NBA, any of these professionalized sport activities, right? There's such history there, but at this moment in time, we have a different kind of level of documentation. Things like, as I said, Twitch, Twitter, the kind of coverage that it's had. We have a different kind of and different level of documentation of the emergence of a new sport. So that's interesting.
Esports, I would just call it competitive video games, whatever form that may take.
Esports, I think basically it's what it sounds like, just like, electronic sports or sports online. Just basically like there's, a massive like online player base of like Call of Duty or, Halo or like StarCraft.
The original Mario games, or like games that were designed to be competitive like League of Legends, and even those that weren't designed to be competitive but became competitive like Smash. Like Smash wasn't designed to be a competitive game, but it became one.
The broad category of esports are people playing electronic video games for spectators, right, for prize money.
Esports are the competitive part of video gaming. It sort of came out of the natural you versus me. I'm better than you. I'm the best group in all my group. My best kid in all my group of friends. I can beat you at this game. And it sort of grows out in that need and that desire to prove competitively that you're better than everyone else. And local tournaments become regional tournaments become national tournaments become international tournaments. And before you know it, esports, sports is a term we're throwing around for tens and sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars of prize money for popular video games.
I think esports are becoming popular because many games are being designed from the beginning with the spectator in mind. For so long the emphasis was only on the player, like what can a designed experience be that's good for players, and lots of people are saying, well, there are other people in the room oftentimes when people are playing games.
I know a lot of people who aren't necessarily League of Legends players, but they like watching it as an esport, because they don't quite have the reflexes or the knowledge or the desire to play it as a competitive game, but they can understand as a video game what's happening, the team dynamics, and appreciate it on that level. Just the way that someone might watch Sunday Night Football, even if they never strap on a helmet themselves, because they can still understand the game, they grew up watching the game. And similarly, these people, maybe they try their hand at it, but it's generally, that's what the main demographic is. People who are interested in video games, people who play video games, and people who want to see more of that played at that highly competitive level.
Spammy. Gangster laser.
Oh,
wow! What? He's gonna kill himself. He's
Twitch is a big catalyst for the popularity of esports.
It's a website that's essentially just allows users to stream themselves playing video games. And it has, I think, created a massive community for competitive gaming.
It used to be to really see a big StarCraft tournament, you had to physically go somewhere or download the video that someone had recorded with their camcorder at the event, or maybe they had recorded the video and the people who organized an event released it later. But now with Twitch streaming, millions of people can watch all over the world a match between two players sitting at two computer screens right across from each other.
It's really emphasized like the spectating nature of like a lot of these games, and I think that it's like I said, it's created this like hub and this community that didn't really exist before.
I think it's truly the internet sport. We look at other popular sports are really defined and shaped by television. Clearly esports are very defined and shaped by the boom in digital streaming media that's made live events possible.
Esports are probably biggest in Korea, is probably one of the primary markets. It's really where big time esports got its start. StarCraft was one of the first televised esport games, and that really got its start in Korea. But it's broadened since then. Here in the United States, you had the fighting game community, which was centered around games like Street Fighter, or the things like that. You also have the rise of League of Legends and other games that really, allow people an opportunity to demonstrate a high level of skill. But it really got its start in Korea, and then it's moved here into the US and broadened from there. College markets probably have a lot to do with that as well, because a lot of universities have small club teams related to esports.
The League of Legends Club has had around 50 active members on a weekly basis, and total members including alumnus is probably around 500. Generally, we like to have at least 2 tournaments a semester. As far as active members go, I would say they would make up probably less than even 30% of the participants at tournaments.
The biggest event I've been to would be TI4. It's a strictly Dota 2 tournament. There were 8 teams at the main event, and the prize pool was actually over $10 million.
MSU had an alumni who, his name is Hai Lam, but he's now a professional league player. He's on the best team in North America, and he's going to Worlds right now. But I met him when I was a sophomore, and I remember he was telling me that he was going to drop out of school to pursue professional esports, and I was like, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. He definitely is one of those stories where he, dropped everything to chase his dreams, and it worked out.
I guess a lot of people kind of look at computer games like in a sort of kind of contemptuous manner. Like if you say, oh, I'm like playing this game, or like, oh, I went to this event, you kind of like feel embarrassed talking about it, and it's not because like it's a stupid thing to do, but it's because people kind of see gaming as this like lazy person who just like drinks Mountain Dew and eats Doritos all the time. And but to actually play games like Dota and LoL well, you like need to be understanding.
If you look at people who play esports themselves, they tend to have fairly active lifestyles in order to play at that level and have the mental and dexterity to like play through and play 6-7 hours in a row of high-level competition. Those people play a lot of soccer. They do a lot of running. They do. There's training camps in South Korea for esports teams where they have a gym built into their camp because they want them to do hours a day of exercising. Otherwise, they won't be mentally prepared. If you look at your typical esports player, they tend to be fairly skinny, fairly fit people. You don't see a lot of largesse or really obese or out of shape people playing esports because you can't keep up mentally with the game.
A really important thing I think about for esports to get popular is that the stigma of it being like, oh, just like the uber nerd who like, doesn't really have a social life and just like sits in their parents' basement playing video games all the time. That's really not what real esports is about at all. Like the celebrities are all like actually really, really nice, and a lot of them are really well spoken. And to be good at these games, you have to not only like practice, it's not just a hobby, you have to practice because it's such a low payoff if you're not good. And it's one of those things that develops teamwork, develops communication, and understanding and patience.
There's a lot of skill involved in a lot of these games, and it's really cool to see this kind of skill played on a professional level. Even if you don't necessarily understand what's going on, these games, you can play them for fun, but when you see a professional play them, it's like a whole nother level. It's something you can never achieve. They can react faster than anything you could ever like believe in. Like everything is second nature, and it's really cool to see this kind of thing. And there's a lot of people that don't necessarily have an interest in physical sports that it would definitely appeal to, and I think that is that's what really fuels the potential for esports to go somewhere.
I think esports is fascinating the way it's really taken off in places like South Korea. Everyone always points to South Korea. Of course, China and Japan, they're very popular too. Singapore actually has a program where they take popular esports players, and in Singapore they have conscription for their military where you're required to serve a certain number of years. Well, if you're a gamer, they have this whole division of like celebrity gamers who test out their flight simulators for them, and they publish and broadcast these like flight simulators battles between these professional gamers during their time of conscription, sort of like Elvis Presley going around and doing concerts for the USO, or and I think the way that the emerging Pacific Rim region has taken to esports is fascinating in a way that it hasn't quite taken off in the other parts of the world. Certainly it's very popular in Europe, it's very popular in North America, but it's more of a cultural movement in those countries. I was reading that when South Korea was recently in the World Cup, they actually brought in some esports players to like pep up the soccer team, the professional soccer players. They brought in video game players so they could like sign autographs and give them a pep talk about like to get them ready to go out and play a game of soccer. I think in terms of sports, that's the biggest, I think, problem with calling it. People are going to call it sport or e-sport, this or that. Is chess a sport? Is poker a sport? Is darts a sport? You know, these are essentially games, and at some level people are going to have to decide, does the label fit what it is? You know, is it truly an athletic event? But I guess people still argue about whether or not golf is a sport, so maybe we'll never get there.
I think League is going to be one of the defining characteristics on esports for like next 20, 30 years. Like what happens in the next few years will determine that. If League starts fizzling out and dies off, then esports isn't going to grow much, because they're going to see this biggest game of all time and then died, and even it couldn't hold up the banner of esports. So nobody else is going to really have that giant aspiration. But if League continues to grow, or even stays where it is right now, and over the next 3-4 years, and esports will just keep picking up speed, then I think there's definitely a very strong future for it.
When you're actually, at an event, you realize it's just so much more massive of a following than you thought there was. So I think it could grow exponentially, especially now that, prize pools for tournaments are getting really, really big. More and more people of all genders, ethnic groups, economic strata are playing video games or interested in video games and use that as, a popular hobby. And so I think that's only going to grow and it's only going to expand.
I think there's a growing trend. I think the fact that Smash has been getting sponsorships and it's an entirely grassroots community. The fact that it's been growing and we just had it's been its 13th anniversary 2 or 3 days ago, and we've still got a massive following, a great community, and like I said, sponsored players and sponsored tournaments at some points. I think that just kind of serves as an analogy for esports as a whole. It's hard to tell where I think esports will be in 5 years, because when you're just kind of out and about, it's not really something you talk about all the time. It's not like, oh my gosh, this esports game was on the TV and I was, blah, blah. The more time passes, the more corporations and bigger business entities will realize that there's money to be made there. Will it rival big mainstream sports? Probably not for a while, but eventually.
I think that question of where is it going to be, the only answer I can give you is bigger, and who knows what game everyone's going to be playing.